Hey, people who lost their jobs to AI, what happened? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. Voice actor here. While I still get the bigger commercials and jobs, I've lost a lot of the smaller jobs. For example, storyboarding. Ad agencies will create a digital storyboard detailing what the ad will look like. They hire a voice artist to do a preliminary voiceover. You'd earn like $150 to $200 for the hour. It's all AI now. I've worked on campaigns where all of the voice artists refuse to sign their contract because there's a new clause in it. If they sign it, they're signing the rights of their voice over to AI. So this client can use their voice without them ever having to record anything else again. They all refused. The client just recast all of them. Answer. I work a bunch of different positions in audio post-production, and it's only a matter of before a director or producer tells me that the talent has agreed to let AI clone train their voice so I can do edits and pickups without having to re-record them. So far, it hasn't been a thing, but the clock is ticking. Ultimately, it means less money for me and less money for the talent, so I'm holding off for as long as I can. Story 2. Graphic designer here. I haven't been fully replaced yet, but the landscape has completely changed. Clients now expect me to use AI as a co-pilot, generating initial concepts, mood boards, and even rough copy in minutes, not hours. The job is becoming less about executing the first idea and more about curating, refining, and adding the crucial human touch and catching AI's weird mistakes. It feels less like I lost my job and more like my job description was rewritten overnight. The pressure to constantly adapt is the real challenge. Answer. As a fellow graphic designer, yeah, it's frustrating. My team and I spent a few days working on a branding, getting as far as mood boards and logo concepts. Then our boss AI generated a very crappy mood board logo and presented it to the client, then shoved it in our faces like, haha, see, should have used AI from the start. The client loved it. I was livid, to say the least. Story 3. I used to be a data scientist. With 13 Yo, my boss wanted me to solve a problem which involved clustering sensor data by location. Because errors in latitude and longitude tend to be random, we'll have elliptical clouds of points. So I said we should use k-means. My boss picked up his laptop, turned it around and said, but Copilot says that we should use dbScan. I researched dbScan and found that it would be very slow and do the wrong thing in a worse way. My boss did not agree. I was laid off a few weeks later, along with the rest of the data team. My boss was laid off 2 months after that. Now the company has an open position for an AI scientist in India. Answer. This bet on AI originating from the US-based companies is so weird to me. It seems to be so detrimental, yet most of the leadership seems to be so committed, it feels almost like a cult. As somewhat of a bystander, it feels like China's bet on electrification and exports of technology related to sustainable energy seems so much better, and yet US folks seem to be doubling down on their initial stance. Story 4. I was a literary editor for one of the largest sci-fi presses in the world. My boss, the executive editor, retired and the company reassessed their practices. So after spending 15 years working for the greater good of sci-fi, I got outsourced to a goddamn robot. To be fair, I guess I probably should have seen that coming, given the genre. Just never thought it'd surpass human reading analysis that fast. Story 5. Not me, but one of my close friends worked at a call center that was specifically for the hard of hearing disabled. The people who have the phones that have screens that write out speak the text. Her job was to basically subtitle each call that came in. She would type out the conversation as it was happening for the disabled person. As you can imagine, they were all laid off and replaced by AI. I've heard it's already caused legal issues and people suing for the AI telling them incorrect info, like from doctors or medical-related conversations. Answer. I'm not surprised at all. I worked in customer service. Part of my job was to oversee the chatbot that users would speak to before they got through to an actual agent. The AI would consistently get information incorrect. I dealt with licenses, so there's legal implications if someone is provided with incorrect information from us. Since I was laid off, I've seen an uptick of YouTube videos about how the company is a scam and fallen into other dark patterns, pop-ups, auto-renewals, etc., to extort more money from their elderly users, with no real way for them to get assistance with a refund. So the amount of CC disputes has risen exponentially. And keep in mind, the company has to pay for every dispute, whether they win or lose. I've already seen they're regretting it and are now outsourcing cheaper labor from abroad and taking advantage of foreign workers. But fudge, they torpedoed any goodwill their brand may have gotten. Story 6 was making 3D models for 20 years, but since AI became a thing, most people just skip the 3D stage altogether and just generate the final image or video instead. AI is still trash at 3D modeling, but it's great at generating the final product, making the models themselves unnecessary. Working retail now. Answer: put your skills on Upwork, Fiverr, and other such platforms. You'll be competing with obvious fake profiles, but real talent does get work and rewarded freelancing there. And clients like me, once we find you, are very jaded by the fakes and latch on to real people when we find them. If nothing more, it can be a good side hustle. There is plenty of use for 3D models. Story 7. This just happened yesterday, so new wounds. They had us train a chatbot, so we made the resources to feed it. The chatbot was supposed to help us with the load. Chatbot now gets to carry the whole load. Entire support team got laid off. Story 8. I'm an epidemiologist working for a local health department in a team building disease surveillance capacity. Basically, my team makes data cleaning and visualizations automated so we can spend time interpreting the output and detect outbreaks and patterns earlier. We all have masters or PhDs in epidemiology biostatistics. We are being pushed out in the middle of respiratory season at the end of the year so the IT team can make oversimplified graphs that are not useful and use AI for the rest. It's absolutely horrifying that our community's health is in the hands of untrained IT and AI. Story 9. I worked for a newspaper as an editor. I was basically a glorified spell checker. They automated my job for less than $1,000 a year. Now, I bartend and drive school buses to make ends meet. Story 10. My uncle does voice acting. A lot of his work came from audiobooks, but that's drying up lately and being replaced by AI voice. Story 11. Fudge, if I am going through this right now. I am going to be fully transparent here. To preface, I didn't lose my job to just AI, but to outsourcing in tandem with AI that our C-level execs thought could perform on par with US employees. I work for a Microsoft vendor that provides global support for Azure Cloud and 365. This covers a lot of support verticals. Some are technical, and some are not so technical. I am a support engineer for Azure Identity and Access Management. We provide break-fix, RCA, and advisory support on anything from hybrid environment identity management, AD, Entra ID, cloud-only environments, enterprise provisioning, SCIM, SSO, RBAC, application access, onboarding, offboarding, lifecycle management, key vault, directory management and subscription concepts, etc. We have the broadest scope of Azure technical support. You, as a SMB or enterprise organization, can pay for Azure support. The support plans vary from broad commercial to unified, expensive, and white glove. Think Fortune 500 companies. When you make a support request, likely the request goes to a vendor like myself. Sometimes you get a guy who can't speak English and the support is awful. Or you get to an American team, or sometimes they escalate to the better performing teams. As a vendor, we have a contract with Microsoft to provide this support. There are internal Microsoft support engineers, but a smaller team working for typically the customers Microsoft deems the most important. My team is comprised of American engineers. We consistently have had the highest metrics, such as days to close complex issues, lowest rate of technical escalations, and the highest satisfaction ratings from our customers. Compared to teams from other countries, like Nigeria and India, where they take months to resolve issues, we'd resolve in days and have extremely low satisfaction reports. No shade, but I have seen the work from these places, and it is always playing hot potato, and we are inquiring internally, updates, putting work on other teams, no actual engineering or meaningful work. My company definitely already underpays us, but the last 2 years hard pushed us to use a Microsoft proprietary Copilot version to assist with our casework. This AI became a mandatory metric where we could get fired for not using it. This AI was and is almost always wrong with technical information, and always wrong on key details when assessing complex issues. Essentially, it was completely useless if you have any semblance of competency in your role. So my company gets the go-ahead from Microsoft to start us on the highest tier of paid support, Unified, this year after months of the AI push, which we crush as usual. And then they are renegotiating our contract, stringing us along saying we will make more as we are doing more work and working with more demanding and complex organizations. Instead, once they get the contract, they lay off every single North American team to outsource our jobs to an African country that will not be named, to pay these guys 400 USD a month because they are betting they can perform near our level, leveraging the AI we trained. It is still useless and actively sabotaging yourself to attempt to rely on it in any form. Oh, and we didn't even get severance. We are just expected to work as normal and keep training this AI until our last day at the end of the year. It's mauling and insanity. My condolences if you pay for Microsoft Azure support. You shouldn't. Feel free to ask me anything. Answer: wow. I used to work in the Microsoft team that ran the contracts for our vendor engineers. Not Azure, but another workload, vague for privacy reasons. I left just a few years ago. I wondered how MSFT would squeeze vendors with AI and worried about it. My teams in Uruguay and China were really good, but maybe even those guys are at risk of loss of work to an AI. Frightening. I had 1,200 FTE vendor engineers in my organization, so this is a lot of people, and I wasn't even Azure. Story 12. I haven't lost my job, but finding one is really hard because it seems 14th of the advertised now require AI to a high level. Context. GPT was only released 3 years ago and took off 2 years ago, so no one has a lot of experience except those very few people who worked in data AI beforehand, which was a small subset of the tech community. So whilst I'm no slouch, not having a track record of AI implementation success stories under my belt makes me look less attractive as a candidate. Story 13. I wasn't replaced by AI in a one-on-one capacity, but it did destroy my field in general. It's a weird case. I had 10 years of experience doing an extremely niche type of government paperwork. Without going into detail, this was the sort of paperwork that businesses, especially small businesses, absolutely had to do for a few logistical reasons. Extremely tedious, extremely long, 250 to 500 pages about 20 times a year. I mostly worked for small businesses who themselves would work for various government branches. Around late 2023, early 2024, the typical AI grifters started selling their products to businesses in this area. The idea was, hey, you have a staff of managers, editors, and writers. Our LLM can replace all that. So the small businesses, which were in truth very small, 30 people usually, ate this up. They were already fly-by-night skeleton operations, by design, and any cost-saving measure was welcome. So, the small businesses laid a bunch of us specialists off, myself included. Here's where it gets weird. The type of paperwork we do is extremely complex, very time-sensitive, and is often reviewed at a very detailed level. So the AI actually couldn't replace the people without a lot more time and money invested in editing and correcting it. Problem is, this sort of paperwork was absolutely essential in keeping the business's doors open. So many of the small businesses, most of whom would live contract to contract, suddenly lost the ability to do this paperwork, which meant they lost the ability to get new contracts, which meant they mostly just went out of business. This all happened at roughly the same time as Doge and an overall downtick in government spending. So my field was, briefly, replaced. But now people want to hire again because the AI couldn't do the job. But 80 of the companies that would be hiring these jobs back simply don't exist anymore because they went out of business. TLDR, AI replaced the job, but then the job replaced AI. But because the job's ecosystem was so fragile, grifters accidentally eliminated maybe 80 of the opportunities in the field. Story 14. I was a full-time visual artist. The commissions dried up when people started using ChatGPT to make all their images, flyers, posters, etc. Story 15. Luckily, it was just my side hustle, although a lucrative one. I used to be a note-taker for technical meetings, including some remote meetings. Then various programs rolled out AI transcription services. The results are not as good as what I was producing, and actually have critical errors not infrequently. Did you know can and can't sound extremely similar when spoken in a room with poor acoustics? But I can't really expect people to be willing to pay my rates when there's something literally free that produces about 70 of the quality. And I wasn't interested in doing it for lower rates. So there went that side hustle. Even in government agencies that couldn't use the programs, it still devalued valued the perception of my work and what someone would be willing to pay for it. Story 16. My brother lost his job to AI this month. He worked in QA, and his company decided to sack 500 non-client-facing jobs to replace them with AI without any warning. I honestly hope that the AI blows up in their face. Answer. In QA, the one area you really can't trust a hallucinating AI to do the correct thing all the time. Paycom is going to hurt for this one. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but we shall see in the news something weird come out down the road. I know it doesn't matter now because it affects your brother at this moment. Sorry to him. The greed of the leadership in the company will just ruin everyone. Story 17. I'll let you know within the year. My leadership team started developing it and expecting half or more of us to be eliminated. Story 18. I spent 15 or so years writing the content that goes on websites. I had a range of clients, from investment advisors to life coaches to nutrition coaches to people who sold sexy lingerie for men. I had an advantage with some clients because of my engineering degree, so I wasn't afraid of numbers or to dig deep on technical topics. I rage quit my first job doing this. Long story. Worked in a warehouse for a year or so, then took another job writing websites. Same deal. I hadn't been in that job for 10 months before our CEO, who inherited the company from his dad, discovered generative AI software. Suddenly, they wanted the software to write everything and me to edit it. I fudged dislike every second of it, and I guess it showed. Soon after, I was fired. The CEO was going to let the software write the website content so he could focus on his newest baby, a free-to-consumer print. Yes, print magazine. So I went back to my warehouse job because jobs doing what I did were suddenly non-existent. The print magazine my former CEO was so passionate about kept getting thinner. Then they started charging for it. I don't know any more than that, but I do hope he is having a terrible time. Answer. Yeah, I work with a few ad agencies, and so far all the actual creative work has stayed in the agency. The people who actually come up with ideas for ads are still employed. But entire departments related to actually producing the ad are getting fired. Like if you're making a substances commercial and need a woman looking happy and refreshed walking out of her door in the morning, that seconds-long shot used to require location scouts or set designers, wardrobe, makeup artists, actress, voiceover artist, director, lighting, camera operators, catering, sound guys. It could take dozens of people to get that quick shot. Or you can have AI generate that few seconds of video, and maybe the woman will have 6 fingers, but literally no one will notice when watching the commercial, and you could just save yourself the cost of dozens of employees. And all the people who did your job. People don't realize how much pointless blog posts are created just to bulk up websites to rank higher on Google. Like a lawn care company might have a bunch of articles on their website about fertilizers, weather, common pests, etc., that no one really reads just to bulk up their page. Those blog posts aren't written by experts, just people who did some Googling and wrote a few hundred words. Only one of the agencies I work with still employs someone to generate content, and only because that person charges like $40 per post. BC, they live in the Philippines. Everyone else stopped getting work, and there's just one person in the office who types prompts into AI and spends a few minutes editing the output to catch mistakes. People think the creative industry is about being creative, and AI isn't good at actually being creative. But the very large majority of the creative industry is just executing ideas. One person's actual creative idea might employ 250 people who go about executing it. Like most illustrators, artists aren't drawing what their passion is. They make their money drawing some guy's fursona, fudge his girlfriend's fursona, and use that income to fund their passion projects. Kids who went to film school end up holding boom mics to film a Coca-Cola commercial and do creative projects in their spare time. Most of the field is just getting shoot done, not actually being creative. And that part of things AI is doing adequately and getting better every day. The industry is going to be permanently changed, if not entirely decimated. Story 19. I didn't yet lose my job to AI, but I feel I am falling behind as most people are actively using AI in their creative careers, which I don't, because you need to buy credits to do anything. I don't want to be chained, but yeah, it's hard to match the level or work of people that use AI. Answer. Wait until the true cost of AI hits. OpenAI is hundreds of billions of dollars in the hole, and one day their investors are going to want to claw that back with interest and profit on top. They've even said themselves that not one single tier of service is profitable for them. They're just hemorrhaging money in order to try to be a loss leader. When the costs of those tokens' credits start to reflect reality, there are so many companies, people, that are going to have a really serious shock once they realize they've lumped all their products, services, into relying on it, have been offering it for free to all their customers, and sacked the staff who used to do that. Story 20. I work for a company where the CEO decided we had to become an AI-first company. The problem space was definitely not AI first. We had to all start using AI in everything, and then one day, they let go the entire QA department, the entire sales department, a big chunk of the software engineering group, and the post-sales group. None of those groups had AI solutions built to take over. I've already seen customer complaints where bugs have gotten out into the wild, so good luck with that. Story 21. Partners, company just did a large round of layoffs due to restructuring for AI. All those jobs are still done by people, but the company has to justify their huge AI bill by cutting their workforce. Story 22. Not lost yet, but insurance. I feel like the only reason we have people on our team is so that people calling in aren't talking to a robot. Other than that, claims, emails, appeals, medical record readings are all done by AI. Boss says we need to focus on the important things, which is living up to customer expectations. So to have claims done by the day cause now everyone is advertising how quick claims can get done. As time goes on, our teams get smaller, even replaced our whole training department for newcomers. Your voice is now analyzed and used for grading for your reviews. It's also getting stored and sold as data. It's not a good thing, guys. Patience is a good thing to have, and tech has cut that short on a lot of people. Story 23. I lost mine to automation that I'd written myself. Someone once told me, if you're a programmer and your job is repetitive, that means you're bad at programming because you should have automated the repetitive stuff. Most of my job was pretty repetitive, so I automated it. That worked fine for over a decade until I made the awful mistake of writing some documentation for the automation. I lost my job the same month. Answer. I've automated a lot of the boring parts of my job, but luckily there are parts that are impossible, ever-changing, to automate. They would cost far too much, and then you'd have to pay far too much to pay a specialized programmer to maintain it with the changes. Anyway, our developer always has people who fight against automating parts of their job because they don't want to get fired. I know at least one who 100 would get fired, and he says he has no idea why they are worried. Look how easy it's made my job. Yeah, no clue why they don't want you touching their stuff. Story 24. Didn't lose it to AI, but did lose it because of AI. I was an editor for a website that relied on affiliate links for revenue, and once traffic dropped because of AI overviews, they were screwed. Seems a lot of publishers were in the same boat. The buyers tried to hire me back on a freelance basis, but didn't want to pay even half what I had been earning. LOL. Now learning other skills like coding, but seems like that might be a waste of time too. I have actually also been finding useful cases for AI and educating myself on it, so hoping that will help. And applying for communications instead of editing because they're related, and those jobs actually still exist. Answer. Now learning other skills like coding, but seems like that might be a waste of time too. Guess who's having to clean up after vibe coders? AI is extremely helpful when programming, but as a developer myself, I've been at it for 30 years. I have to keep a very close eye on whatever the AI is suggesting for the code. I never let it do big stuff. Been burned there. Because you never know when it is going to overpredict what you need, or plainly get it wrong. As I said, it can make me faster, but I have colleagues that proudly talk about how they wrote XXX in a couple of hours, only to admit spending the next 5 days fixing the garbage they got. AI might get better there, but Story 25. A-holes who had seen TikToks saying that they could be rich beyond their wildest dreams with no effort bombarded my very favorite writing gig. It got to the point where they had to halt submissions because those AI tester things weren't great, and they just wanted to figure out a fair way of doing things. Story 26. They just started introducing more AI things to save us time, so we can focus on the important stuff. And they swore they weren't trying to replace people, they just wanted to help us at work. Then they eliminated positions one by one. Once they had eliminated 2 jobs and moved the responsibility to my role, so the work of 3 positions, they started laying off those people. Bye. Story 27. I worked for a content creation marketplace. We matched up people who needed a lot of content written with people in a community, if over 2,000 writers. $20 million company to almost zero in 6 months. Story 28. Keep in mind, Most people will not directly lose their job to AI. Companies will just hire fewer people and expect the current people to get more done. Like when computers and productivity software got popular, secretaries didn't lose their jobs. Companies just stopped hiring secretaries. Answer: all jobs are indirectly affected. I've seen people say, "Oh, well, I'm a chef and that will take much longer to automate." Everyone who's been laid off by AI will want these few remaining jobs now, so your competition is increasing exponentially. The odds of you becoming a chef or retaining your chef job will lower drastically, even if the job itself remains manual labor for a while longer. Story 29. I'm in the process of my industry dying out. Former journalist, current copywriter. AI has been chipping away at my work for the last 1.5 years. It's terrible. I honestly have no idea what to do next, where to find time to retrain. No idea what to do. I recently had a gig to write something creative from scratch, and it was such a delight to do. I'm going to miss writing. I truly do love it. Story 30. I was hit with the three-punch combo. Outsourced to Romania, automation. And yep, I'm the one who trained the Romanians and helped write the automation to make our jobs a little less taxing. Fired without notice after 11 years. Have no loyalty to your company. They will drop you without hesitation to save a buck. You and your family aren't human beings to them. That being said, I was overworked and underpaid. Since losing my job, I've now gotten 2 full-time jobs I can work simultaneously, remote, and have over doubled my income in less than a month. Don't get comfortable out there, people. Story 31. Marketing copywriter here. AI deleted the freelance writing market and decimated the bottom 50 of all corporate writing positions in a matter of days. Applicant pools went from 40 to 60 per job to 3,500 to 5,500 per job in under a month. It was so dispiriting that LinkedIn changed its UI to accommodate and obfuscate the insane increase in applicants. Individual jobs don't list applicant numbers anymore. They're just labeled by popularity. I have an inordinate number of accolades and degrees for my age. I've written a Super Bowl commercial, and I've written for Joe Rogan, Post Malone, and others. I can't find work. I'm now an OF content creator. Story 32. For all the endless talk about AI replacing people, I'd love to see some concrete examples of how much that has proven successful for the companies. Everyone seems to dislike AI customer service, and some places have already walked that back. I've seen stories of other businesses that fired all their copywriters, etc., only to have to hire people back to fix the slop. In my personal experience, it hasn't fully replaced people, but it's being forced down so many people's throats and workflows, with the expectation that they should be able to produce much more work using the AI output, even though its still constant mistakes invite a lot of risk across many industries and often add in more labor having to fact-check fix said mistakes. Answer: well, go to Google and put in some popular keywords in a niche of your interest. Then search for default GPT words terms like let's dive in, navigating, realm, landscape, nuance. Any sites repeatedly using those terms that existed 3 years ago have replaced their paid writers with GPT copy pasta, and the fact that it is showing up on the first page of Google means it worked from the perspective of that business. Story 33. I was let go during a mass layoff where they blamed shifting resources towards AI. Got 8 months severance and landed a new job in 6 months selling AI. Lols. Story 34. I lost my job to outsourcing in AI. I was a technical artist, the person who makes game assets, makes them compatible with a game engine, gets them into the game, and gets them looking right and set up for programmers, engineers. I have AI in quotes because I was let go on the CEO's assumption that I could be replaced with AI, not that it can actually do my job. Then my job was outsourced. I suspect a lot of people are being let go just based on the assumption that AI can replace them. Story 35. System specialist. Lots of shoot got automated and our department was halved. Before that, I lost all income from my translation subtitling side gig. Story 36. Lost my job as a copywriter, content writer. I've thankfully settled into a strategy role on how to use content to achieve things instead. That's something AI hasn't quite figured out yet. I was replaced as they thought AI could come up with better content than I could. They asked me to use it, and admittedly, it helped a lot to brainstorm very basic ideas. After checking, it hadn't suggested plagiarized copy. refine them into something cool, and share that in kickoff meetings to build upon with a team of creatives. But they read it as AI is doing the work, and so ditched me. They hadn't actually tested to see if it could work without me, and when it came to it, it fell flat. Since then, they've defaulted to the most generic, soulless tone of voice. Instead of introducing interesting, attention-grabbing content, they just put the title of the product in instead and send it out. For a heritage company in business for 180 years to not have a brand voice, ouch. Fair enough. Money will always win, but I do laugh when all the companies that use AI see it as the second coming, yet also complain that their tone of voice and branding seems to have just fallen off a cliff in the previous years. They can't seem to connect those dots, or I suspect they don't want to. Or, more likely, it doesn't matter to them. I'd say it's a lesson about modern business leaders, and one that I don't see enough people understanding. It's no longer about having some respect for your product or customers, offering something of quality to the world, or offering staff a livelihood and career. Nor is it about doing some kind of good in the time we're here. It's only about money. My advice to those struggling to understand this: keep your creativity for yourself. You'll be paid or laid off either way. Story 37. I helped set up a data science algorithm for when to give out loans to a smaller bank. And once I set it up, they said we'll have AI take it from here. They were using illegal fields as well to determine who got loans. Story 38. I'm an accountant, and in the past 6 months, I've seen 3 staff reductions at my place of employment, all of which had some effect on our departmental staff. Each has amounted to about a 10 staff reduction. January 8, 2026 is circled on my calendar because that is the likely last day I can expect to still be employed. My job is rote, time-consuming, and ripe for AI. Within a few years, I can't imagine there will even be 10 of the staff levels from 2023 and prior. This is a whole new world we're entering, and I don't think we're prepared for it. There should be massive, government-backed education programs set up to help people learn new skills and re-enter the workforce. Instead, I really fear what is going to happen, even if, when, the AI bubble pops. I recently enrolled in a program at a local tech college to be a medical assistant, while I am waitlisted for the radiography program. I am aware of the challenges, burnout, etc., but I need a job that can dependably be around for 25 more years. Story 39. My wife lost her career as a copywriter and editor. All her clients switched to AI, and they usually have a single human oversee it. Every time we see an obviously AI-written ad or training video, my wife bristles. Story 40. Worked payroll, then got replaced. Now I work food service again, and the existential angst about money and my career trajectory hits harder in my 30s than 20s. I'm so lucky to have my fiance be so supportive at least. Been applying to payroll jobs ever since. Gotten a few interviews, but no satisfactory offers. Story 41. I worked in tech support for 16 years. After COVID, I noticed it was getting harder and harder to find work in my field. Since 2021, I've applied at hundreds of places and rarely ever get a call back or even a courtesy email. I started to suspect AI recruiting tools were rejecting my resume for arbitrary reasons. It's true that I had a couple jobs I only lasted a year at, but I don't think that should completely invalidate me as an employee. I was making $135K 4 years ago, working for a large tech company, and now I can't even find full-time work. I work part-time in a mall and need to find a second job if I'm going to survive. So I don't think my position was replaced with AI agents, but I'm fully convinced AI tools are keeping me underemployed. I lost my house, my car, my mental health, and most of my possessions, all because I don't fit the 100 perfect criteria for a remote tech job I have lots of experience in. Story 42. Copywriter here. I was effectively replaced by AI over a 1 to 2 year period beginning in the first half of 2022. I was earning a comfortable salary writing ad copy, web pages, pitch decks, and more, and it all got scooped up by a single paid generative AI subscription, Gemini, I believe. I tried freelancing after I was let go, but the commercial writing discipline had changed way too much. I'm now going back to school at 46. Story 43. I worked for a major US-based insurance carrier. I wasn't actually fired, but they started pushing a lot of people out the door, and I left before I could be next. For the last few years, AI has been the big push. Being able to generate a policy without ever needing to speak to a human. And if you file a claim, being able to submit photos, get an estimate, and pay out instantaneously and with minimal human contact was the goal. So they started implementing fully automated systems, laying off the most tenured employees and driving up the workload for everyone else. In my department, the fraud department, they started using AI to scrape claim files, looking for fraud indicators to generate cases and then assign them out. It worked okay for some types of cases, but terribly for most others. But the company didn't care. They laid off the entire intake team. Company-wide, they reworked our metrics to be impossible to meet, then started routinely firing the bottom performers. Everyone, including me, saw the writing on the wall and started looking elsewhere. I can't speak for the rest of the company, but I suspect they are going to soon get hit with some massive lawsuits because AI and new employees make a lot of mistakes, and you can't make mistakes on contractual things like this. Too bad they laid off most of the legal team and switched the entire HR department to AI. For my small department, they lost centuries worth of experience, along with most of their employees, and they are getting hit really hard by fraud rings that they used to be industry leaders in combating. Too bad everyone who knew how to deal with them was fired or driven away. I won't say who the company is, but if your insurance company's mascot is green and animated, you should know what your premiums are going to. Story 44. Right now, I do evaluations for mental health services and am not providing direct therapy services. But regardless, I don't think AI is capable of either of those jobs, at least not yet. There is a certain level of empathy you have to do the jobs, and I'm not sure a machine can fake it well enough. In theory, me doing evaluations could be replaced by AI, assuming clients could type back answers. But most people I see are woefully technologically illiterate, if not outright Luddite technophobic, and refuse to interact with computers because they don't know how. I think even providing voice responses to a machine or an AI avatar would be so off-putting. People meanie enough now about doing telehealth, which has become very widespread post-COVID. All that to say the trend or replacing a therapist with AI is something that disappoints, frustrates, and outright scares me. I'm not sure a machine intelligence will ever be able to provide concise therapy services. It's one of those things that is a science that is more art than science. Generally, research shows that across the board, therapeutic interventions of any one school do about the same. But there is a human element to it. There's also nuance on diagnostics that I see reviewing others' documentation all the time because they're relying on a checkbox, like AI would. AI bots that essentially are a kiss jerk that just tells you want to hear are concerning. Reflection is a textbook skill for therapists, but as a client and therapist, one of the most memorable interactions I had with a provider is them. When I was at a very low point and expressing borderline SI, and they got angry and told me I need to get over myself and cut the bullshit. That was almost 15 years ago, and I still think about it sometimes. It is concerning how they can and will reinforce reality distortions or outright delusions people have, not to mention the danger of people expressing tragic end ideation or intent that are egged on by machines that are easily jailbroken by just saying, "Oh, it's a joke game someone else." Like many other factors, I don't think people training these models have considered the risks, and frankly, doubt they care, to be honest. We've already seen one high-profile case of someone that died by tragic end that had a chatbot encouraging them that sat by and did nothing. They said they fixed it, but I'm still skeptical. Because I'm not a doctor with a PhD or MD, people assume that being a therapist is some rinky-dink shoot, and I'm not a real medical professional, and that anyone can do it. See, the multitude of therapists and coaches and social workers with a fraction of the training cosplaying as therapists. I had to work for over 1,000 hours under direct supervision before I was even free to see a client alone. Then 2,000 more under indirect supervision before I obtained my license. Then I am allowed independently engage with people, and even then, there are still multiple guardrails and nets in place to prevent malpractice. Answer: I think any patient-facing role in healthcare is safe for the foreseeable future, and I agree with all your takes. Obviously, people come up with the wrong ideas about patients all the time and give bad guidance based on that. But I have to imagine the ability to come up with a consistent understanding and description of another human being and their issues will continue continue to beat out the AI-generated, statistically average explanation. I mean, come on. We're also a specifically built neural network for human interactions. Also, there's a lot of people who need healthcare and mental health resources. Well-integrated and limited machine learning tools probably have a role, but that role is just going to be more work and more efficient work for the currently stretched out workforce. Story 45. I was an SEO copywriter until I got laid off last week. The company demolished the entire content team and is forcing everyone to use copy.ai. Story 46. I'm a costume designer, and with increasing frequency, production director are designing the costumes in Midjourney with explicit instructions to reproduce them, effectively stealing the one part of my job I signed up for. Still, I'm considered one of the lucky ones because I'm still working. Story 47. Not directly me, but I'm a printer that also does graphics and shoot. The amount of posters and flyers I've printed that were made with AI is insane. All of them have mistakes too. Clients also refuse my spell and print data check way more often to cut costs. That some poor folks got fired in those departments. Luckily, I started working in merchandise for musicians. All of our clients care about man-made graphics on their shirt and hoodies. Story 48. I was a copywriter. Fun stuff, too. People who were making their own fantasy worlds for video games, D&D games, board games, approached me to rewrite their rule system in a flavor text way. It was good fun and helped fund myself through university. I don't remember what the pay was, but it was decent considering how annoying and time-consuming it was to make game rules sound interesting. Yeah, as soon as ChatGPT launched, I lost most of my clients. Why pay me for 5 hours of work to do what a prompt will do for free, I guess? Story 49. I had a part-time job for a local private jet hire company. I was the sole person meticulously writing blog posts. It might sound redundant, but due to the age of people booking flights with us, boomers, they loved it. One part of the editing process was fact-checking. Think statistics on bookings per year, updates to safety advice, etc. A year passes with the blog growing month to month, yet they decided to get rid of me and write the posts with AI. Every single post had inaccuracies and promised more than what I remember we could deliver. I checked the other day and the company removed the blog entirely since nobody was reading it anymore. I wonder why. Story 50. This will probably get lost in the comments, but I worked for a company that without saying the name, showed captions on the phone for deaf people. They basically had us train the AI software that replaced us after telling us our jobs were safe. They obviously weren't. That was years ago, though. I moved on to a better job since. Story 51. Late to the party, but here's my story. I was set to work on a children's book for the school I work for. I told them straight away I wouldn't sign up if there was AI. They used AI art for their last children's book, and apparently the kids dislike it. They laughed and told me it was all going to be from my imagination. So I wrote it and started to put together some clip art like they asked to make the book. Then I had a lupus flare-up. I was out a whole week, and when I came back they said the book was ready. However, when I looked at it, yes, it was my writing, but all the clip art had been replaced with the ugliest AI art I had ever seen. I faked ignorance and asked who illustrated it. Excitedly, my boss showed me the AI tools she used. I cried all the way home and for the next few hours. I was already a fiction author, and if this new book with AI art got onto Amazon like they planned, it was going to ruin my reputation as a very anti-AI author. I texted and asked to have my name removed. One batch had already been sent out, and it was too late, but they felt bad and decided to give me a pen name for the next few batches. I parted ways soon after that. Story 52. Not really a job, but a pastime. I like trolling Reddit posts, but now with AI bots, I can't get in there fast enough. All of the really good zings have already flooded the OP. All I can add is a lame thumbs up or tag a vote. Story 53. Not me, though I'm sure it's coming, but my employer laid off our entire editing division, at least 20 longtime staffers. And now we just run everything through Grammarly, which sucks. This horrid program regularly corrects a sentence, then corrects its own correction. Our editors knew all the little rules and nuances of language required by our company. It's awful. Story 54. Earlier this year, my team got access to lots of AI tools. Lots of my teammates started touting all the benefits to leadership with the attitude that AI won't take our jobs. People who know how to use AI will take our jobs. A few months later, they did a huge layoff of almost every senior person in my position. And now a small team of the most junior people are expected to use AI to manage all the work of like 4 or 5 teams, including some complex tools that I built that they have no understanding of. My team alone, who all got laid off, have been basically working at full capacity for the last 2 years. Story 55. This is fresh for me. I was laid off on 3rd October. I'm a social media manager. My company closed down the entire brand department, including designers and copywriters. They thought AI could produce all the social media content, which it technically can, but the content is terrible. In September, my content had reached over 3 million people. The content they've posted in October has reached about 45K people so far, and already generated some pretty negative feedback from the community. Anyway, they realized very quickly that AI can't post that content, so they've taken me back as a freelancer 2 days per week to manage the channels without having to produce any of the written or visual content. Very strange times. Story 56. Many people are being put into positions where they are building and training the AI systems that will ultimately replace them. And they know it, and their bosses know it, and the bosses know it's going to replace them too. But what else are they all going to do? There is nowhere else to go. And if they say no, they'll just get fired and someone else will do it. Bills to pay, families to take care of. All this, and I can say honestly as someone close to AI development that is not ready to replace people. I'll openly say that correct, responsible usage of AI in the right places can make people more effective. But the person is still the key. Even in things like coding, but I still see it happening across industries. Fun times. Story 57. The company I worked for put all their money and resources to try to create their own AI chatbot, and it failed miserably. Layoffs started shortly after ChatGPT was released. Survived 4 layoffs and then lost my job to outsourcing to cut overall costs. I wasn't working on the AI, completely different department. It just bled through to everything. Story 58. Software engineer here. Saw the writing on the wall when GPT 3.5 first released and reconverted my skills and energy into learning everything I possibly could about this technology as fast as possible. Left my senior SWE position at a big company to work full-time building agents at another big company, and now I'm very in demand and getting paid big bucks. I have ADHD, and it's hell on earth in everyday life, but sometimes it allows me to see patterns before everyone else and act ahead of time before shoot hits the fan. Story 59. I was a writer who did commissions. Over 6 years, I did over 300, from articles to fanfics to NSFW and novellas. It was my full-time job. I loved it. When AI started over a year ago, I slowly started to have less and less jobs. Even though in Fiverr I had 5-star reviews and more than 56 client recommendations, it wasn't my fault, but rather AI. So I stopped having commissions, and that was the end of it. I need to find another job, but now my priority is to enter college and focus on my own writing. Fran 3. Works I have earned 11 USD in over 1 year and 2 months. While in only 2 years, I earned around 7,600 USD, which is quite a lot for my country. So it shows the disparity. I feel bitterness, and yet I have a memory that I was once so well liked. And when I doubt my skills, I can see how much work I had, and with frequent clients. But is true what Beethoven said in the 1800s, nobles and generally people do not care about art, about the artist, is a commercial thing. Something that they can hear at the background that they enjoy shallowly without true recognition. They do not value art, but they enjoy it. This is the same problem. Art too is devalued of any value, and so doing art with AI that is free and looks good for them is enough, and they do not care truly about depth or the artist who lives from it. I will study literature, and honestly, I am just doing it in hope of getting a position as a professor at the college and for the scholarships. But I do not have much of prospect for the future in those terms. I suppose that from the only thing I am good at is writing and teaching, so in a sense it is very painful. Story 60. Up until March of this year, I was working for a 100,000 biotech company. Big name if you ever set foot in a lab. At least 30 of the products and up to 50 come from this company. I left before the layoffs, but AI has replaced a significant amount of scientists working in tech support. Nearly all of my peers and myself have PhDs. Some have been away from benchwork research for years spanning into decades. There is nowhere for these employees to go. They also sacked a ton of technical sales specialists too. I knew the writing was on the wall when I started using ChatGPT for troubleshooting advice. By the time I got onto disability, it could analyze Western blots and even flow cytometry data with ease and accuracy. If I were still at the bench, I would certainly use ChatGPT as a starting point before picking up the phone to call tech support. When the first round of layoffs started happening, I considered myself lucky for becoming disabled by MS, survivor's guilt in the form of progressive neurodegeneration. I miss my brain and my body and grieve heavily for the current state of scientific affairs in this country. I read the biotech subreddit often. Scientists are resorting to gig work now to make ends meet. I never went into research with the intention of being wealthy, but it was certainly something that was assumed. Surely a PhD should protect you from financial hardship, especially if it comes from a reputable university. Many of us postdoced at medical schools too. Story 61. I was not a victim of this, but I've seen a company eliminate their Tier 1 help desk completely and replace it with a chatbot. Story 62. A lot of people losing their jobs to AI are invisible. A huge amount of money has been reallocated from labor towards capital acquisition to support AI servers. That's why Silicon Valley is having massive tech worker layoffs. Not because AI is doing their job, but because companies are not doing any jobs anymore, just buying graphics cards. Story 63. My boss hired Al Borland, said he wanted a little more flannel and a lot less of my existential dread in the workshop. Can't argue with that logic. Story 64. I was a customer success engineer giving support for a technical program in the architectural field. First, in my job, they demanded that for every client that raised a ticket, I should use AI to create an article that detailed a step-by-step solution for the problem as a blog post to be sent to the client for them to solve. And that same article is then used by the ticket platform AI to suggest to the clients to solve the issue. I dislike it with every bit of my soul, cause the AI generated so many errors that you had to spend so much time to correct, and then translate it to another language and recorrect it again. But I lost it because the boss wanted to prepare a webinar with the new capabilities of the new version of the program. So it was basically generate content by one AI to be sent to another AI for slides and stuff. The amount of shoot that AI generated was so much that doing it by hand would be more productive. Last day of the job, the boss tried to prove that we were the ones that didn't know how to use it. He has spent more time trying to finish one article, and he failed miserably. Next day, I was fired. Story 65. My semi-disabled son works for the state. I pray he doesn't get replaced by AI. It is terrifying. Took years and a great deal of luck to get him there. Story 66. Darn, reading this thread. Am grateful. Am an elementary teacher and my husband is a firefighter. We have a little more time left until the robots replace us. Story 67. You know when you call into anything corporate and the call starts with "this call may be monitored for quality," or the monitored call was used as training data for a system that cost people their jobs. Story 68. Detention deputy here. IDK how AI will replace me, but I can definitely see it being invested in and used as a tool in the corrections landscape. Story 69. I was a software engineer with a side role in DEI at a major news publication. I work in a call center, making half as much. Story 70. I haven't lost my job yet, but there is less and less work. I have often offered my services as a translator for short texts or official documents, only to receive the same response. I can do it faster with ChatGPT. It's funny to see AI make grammatical errors and or translate text very literally though. Story 71. I was backpacking through Europe for a few months and met several graphical artists who said the big clients are still around, but all the small stuff like cover art for a self-published book is all gone now. And that kind of work was often the start to someone's portfolio. Story 72. I'm back in school going into debt, hoping for a better future where there's a job out there for me, because I'd love to keep being able to have a roof over my head and food in my body, if that's not too much to ask. Starting a family is a pipe dream. Sorry, birth rate. Can't afford to help with that. Too much to hope for. I assume there won't be any jobs for me, and I'll die in a gutter. Story 73. Did entry-level sales for a big tech company. They rolled out their own internal AI, then 6 months later laid off everyone at my level 130 and used AI to handle all incoming requests and outgoing cold calls emails. That AI could not even handle a simple request and would crash all the time. They also outsourced customer service to India. They're in a nosedive between losing current clients and a complete inability to win new ones. I've gotten a few of their emails due to being left in old testing lists. It's honestly embarrassingly bad. Story 74. My partner lost his job to AI last week. After a year of being unemployed after completing his postgrad and looking for entry-level roles in his industry, sports journalism, he finally got a job as a freelance football writer. He worked for this online football news website, which gave him the most awful, exploitative work contract. But because he couldn't find any other work, he was forced to accept the offer. He worked tirelessly, forced to write minimum 10 stories a day, unpaid overtime, sometimes doing 10 to 11-hour days with no breaks for minimum wage. Over the last couple of months, the company noticed through their analytics a sharp decrease of website views after the introduction of Google's AI overview feature, which automatically gives you an AI-generated response whenever you Google something for an answer. So, answers that would typically be found in a news article written by a real human that you had to click on a website to find are now being replaced by Google's AI overview feature, essentially stealing information from articles posted online by writers and amalgamating it into an often incorrect answer that makes people no longer have to click on websites for. The company is losing a ton of money as a result of not getting any clicks, and the CEO has fired over 20 people, editors included with many years of experience, as they are struggling to cover the costs of writers' salaries. As a freelance writer, his contract had no real financial security, and he was let go with immediate effect, with no notice or severance pay. He worked there for 10 months and is now applying for customer service jobs so we can make ends meet next month and afford our rent. Story 75. Copywriter here got laid off in June because the company decided they wanted AI to do the writing for them. I'm still waiting to see how things go with them and have been job hunting ever since. Story 76. I used to be part of a team in an Asian country that assesses applicants' English proficiency for CS roles. It was a cushy job. I left it for an opportunity in Japan. A few months later, the team was dissolved in favor of an AI program. The team was given a month to do a lateral transfer. Nobody succeeded, and they're all working elsewhere now. Story 77. Social media videographer editor. I haven't lost my job yet, but clients are increasingly expecting things to be done quickly with AI that they don't fully understand. Scripts and video concepts are largely being created by AI with some human modification, putting stress on our writers to output an insane amount of content. Edits, which previously were given lots of thought and care to match the client's brand standards and tone, are being put through auto-TikTok clickbait-style captioning graphics addition tools. As a previous comment said, we use a lot of AI voiceover where we'd previously hired voice actors. I had one project that was quite expensive and difficult to produce get scrapped entirely after final delivery and replaced with AI video, VEO3, so it wasn't even very good. While I haven't lost my job, I've lost a lot of what made it fun and creatively fulfilling, instead being told to output higher and higher volumes of content. No fun. Story 78. I have a BFA in digital art and used to work almost solely in Photoshop and After Effects. My last creative job was as a photo editor for a company that did youth athletics photography centered in Los Angeles. Think your kids' picture day photos for their soccer, little league, or cheerleading team. The month after I got hired, the pandemic hit, and there was no more sports, no more photo shoots, no market, and on top of that, our secondary office burned down in a fire. I'm not even kidding. So I was let go and couldn't find work for forever. And now even Adobe charges you more money for AI in their own software. I couldn't find a job anywhere anymore as an animator or a video editor or graphic designer in the job market in LA. With the strikes and the layoffs, it's a harsh market to be in. So now I'm a fudge bookkeeper, and even that is being eaten away internally by Intuit. It's like, I can't win. Story 79. I got a job at Walmart working the front end. Now I'm in dairy frozen. I actually do a lot more. Meat, produce, online orders, cart pushing, freight, seasonal, maintenance, or whatever else they decide. I work 5 times as hard for about 5 times less. The challenges I get for minimum wage is insane. I was doing data entry. I was a digital nomad, just fudge off money like crazy gambling, drinking, partying. I didn't give a fudge. I'd sleep on couches, intense, outside, hotel, motel. I've tried looking for another job doing what I was doing, but they want you to take courses or they're scams or whatever. Scam after scam. It turns into a sales thing, or it's not even remotely as described. Story 80. Fudge, AL. For years, I sold shoes at Gary's shoe store. Then this gung-ho high school senior got a job at my store. He told me all about his amazing red-headed girlfriend and his brand new Plymouth Duster. For some reason, he kept calling the car a Dodge. He kept telling me how he scored 4 touchdowns in a recent football game for Polk High. Al's work ethic got me fired from Gary's shoe store. Screw that guy. I hope his girlfriend turned into some bonbon-eating, big-haired, no-house-cleaning cooking wife who is addicted to shopping on the TV shopping network. Story 81. Won't get into my exact role, but I will say my main skill is that I can actually write. A shocking number of humans cannot. AI tools, especially this glut of LLMs, are bad. My industry is currently high on AI farts, but seeing very low or negative ROI, so I'm not actually that worried. Yes, it has affected me, but realistically, it won't last in my industry more than another 2 to 3 years, and the smart execs already see it and are pivoting away. There are also other functions of my job that, to replace, would need something closer to AGI than dumbass LLMs. Keep your chins up, friends. Story 82. I used to be a full-time translator and had still kept doing it as a side gig for years. Those jobs are gone now. Story 83. I worked as an API tech engineer for a company you all use. My team got some new AI tools, and shortly after, the size of that team got cut just about in half. I was a decent employee and I have tons of experience, but I'd only been working there 6 years versus 10 to 15 of the senior engineers. So off I went. Took 8 months to find a job making $30K less a year in its contract because no one else is hiring. No time off, no sick time, no PTO. And if they arbitrarily decide to let me go, like they already did for 6 weeks, I can't collect unemployment. It's insane to me that this is allowed. Story 84. Nobody in this thread lost their job to AI. They lost their job to humans making terrible decisions. It's important to remember that none of this is inevitable. Story 85. I was a professional CAPTCHA solver. Turns out the robots got better at telling other robots they weren't robots than I ever was. Tough industry. Story 86. My job was to consume 449 million gallons of water per day and contribute to the mass dumbing down of society. Ever since AI, I've been out in my jerk. Story 87. Not quite. I lost a 20-year career in the financial services industry when a large part of that was taken over by the internet. Thousands were laid off. I needed a job that was relatively safe from ageism and offshoring. So in my 40s, I became a nurse. Until AI can insert an IV or wipe an A, I am relatively safe. Story 88. I work in B2B sales. We are currently implementing an AI ordering software. On the website, it talks about the reduction of routes needed. My time is limited. Story 89. I haven't lost my job yet, and I'm a tech writer, but my boss asked me what I feel about going back to software dev, and I said I wasn't keen. Wasn't thinking much about this comment until recently, when he said he's trying to get me into a senior position. And now I'm actually wondering if he knows my position is in danger or something, and he's trying to do something about it. I'm grateful, but now I'm scared. Story 90. I was an editor for a magazine until fairly recently. I didn't actually lose my job to AI. I lost it more to a transition toward using freelancers. However, now that I'm job searching, it feels like I've already lost my next job to AI. Positions as an editor, researcher, translator, content manager are much fewer than the last time I was job searching, and they all seem to require that you use AI. I'm guessing to try to squeeze 3 employees worth of production out of 1 employee checking an AI's work. It feels a little dystopian, but I also am probably just behind the times and need to start dreaming of electric sheep. Story 91. Product marketer for enterprise software here. In my case, I was laid off for not believing enough in our AI vision. Story 92. My boss has replaced me with a new hire who uses generative AI on Canva Pro. The quality of their ads has gone down significantly, but who cares? They're saving money, as they're not saving money because it's a non-profit and their ads directly affect their income. Story 93. Project manager. The company wanted teams to come up with inventive ways to help make our jobs easier across all departments. I was adamantly against this, saying the higher-ups are trying to find ways for AI to replace us. They allowed me to opt out, but when my team won and we were told to train the AI, I refused. Got let go for insubordination. A few months later and the entire team was laid off. Who saw that coming? Story 94. A large portion of my job was as a concept artist until my supervisor just started making all her own concept iterations in mid-journey and then didn't need me anymore. That was well over a year ago. A true bummer after over a decade of steady employment. There are still places to pivot, but it's taking more creativity to find those things. Frustrating because so many AI optimists say that you just need to be the one learning AI to survive. But the reality is that unless you lucked out and happened to be working somewhere already where they had you learn and implement it on a project, or unless you're a supervisor, chances of transitioning into those roles is really tricky. In film, folks are already looking for AI artists with 3 years experience, which is a joke since we're all just figuring it out together right now. The bright side is that I think analog art will get more valuable. Story 95. I can't tell if I was or not. I worked for a large cellular company with a catchy jingle. About 2 years ago, they inherited an AI model to assist agents on our calls. Its usage became mandatory, and magically the IVR, automated system, suddenly got a lot better. Pretty soon, everyone was getting written up and fired for the most minor of issues. When I started, we had about 800 agents at my one center. When I left, we had 200. I'm informed it's down to 2 teams of 40 now. Story 96. I've seen a lot of people talking about AI replacing jobs, but it seems like the real issue is companies using AI as an excuse to downsize. I mean, AI can be useful, but it's not a magic solution that can replace human judgment and creativity in most cases. Story 97. I was interviewing to Meta, Facebook, for a position as a technical artist, literally as the Gen AI was starting to take off. I had highly impressed the interviewers to the point they told me things in the interview like, wow, no one else has been able to answer that questions correctly before. What was the role mainly doing? Creating a procedural methods for making millions of variations of bedrooms and living rooms to help train the machine learning part of their VR systems. In essence, helping improve the Guardian system on the Quest systems. Surprise, surprise, as soon as there was an option for Gen AI to do all the work for you instead, I suddenly got ghosted for the position. And within a few weeks, Meta announced their own form of Gen AI, doing the exact thing I was going to be paid to do. Awesome. Story 98. A lot of stories about people losing jobs to AI end up being dumb bosses firing people en masse, thinking they're clever only to regret it a few weeks down the line after they realize AI cannot, in fact, do the work their employees were doing. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.